Candymonium, located at Hersheypark, opened on July 3rd of 2020, has a length of 4,636 feet of track with a height of 210 feet, speeds of up to 76 miles per hour, with a very massive vertical angle of 77.3 degrees and a 2.5 minute ride duration and 7 points of airtime. This very unique B&M hypercoaster that was added to the brand new 2020 Hersheypark expansion, the Chocolate Town expansion, which featured a brand new front entrance for the park, as well as a huge acreage expansion that also relocated their carousel. Candymonium is a highlight attraction for Hersheypark as it is the true front center coaster, the first big coaster that you come across at the park right at the front gate. You want to start your thrills nice and early when you arrive to Hersheypark? Candymonium is your perfect go-to ride first thing in the day. It's not what I personally suggest you to do when you visit the park, but to say that this ride gives you exactly what you want for it to have, oh boy, we have a lot to talk about with this one.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Now, as with every coaster review, before we get into reviewing the coaster, we got to talk about how to get to the coaster. And it's literally right in front of your face. You walk straight into the park, you hug a little bit to the left past the carousel, and then you just keep to your right past the Starbucks, and the entrance sign for Candymonium will be right there. The big arrival moment for Candymonium for me is not the front entrance sign, although it looks really nice. It's actually the Hershey Kisses fountain that was recently added as part of the Chocolate Town expansion. This serves as kind of the big finale for the Candymonium roller coaster, where the entire track helixes around this fountain and creates one of the most picturesque moments in a theme park for Hershey, as well as I think, honestly, in the nation from the parks I have visited. So once you get in line, you are greeted with one of three trains, all themed around famous pieces of candy. Either the Hershey Kisses train, which is the blue train, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups train, which is orange, or the Twizzlers train, which is red. Personally, I've never really had a preference for the train. I haven't ridden this ride so much to really dive into which train I think is faster or slower. Most of my rides have honestly been on the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup train, which is the orange train. But if anybody knows from past seasons of riding Candymonium, or maybe has Hersheypark as their home park, has a feeling for which train is maybe faster than another, be sure to let me know, and I'm sure that I will try to want to get a better understanding of all the trains on the track and how each one operates each season. Now, let's get into the ride experience. When you go up the stairs, you are then brought into the station where there are 7 rows to choose from with a total of 28 riders per train for across seating, much like with every B&M hypercoaster. Now, most of the hypercoasters I've ridden, honestly, the only other one I've ridden that was of the same make is Nitro at Great Adventure. So you might hear me relate this review a lot to Nitro, as I've ridden Nitro a lot more times than Candymonium, so don't be surprised if you hear a lot of that. But already, 7 cars per train is already very unique to me, as I'm more used to a longer train on these roller coasters, but to my knowledge, and it's kind of like a physics thing where you have a smaller amount of cars per train, it allows for the ride to feel a little faster, as well as to take more steeper and more sharper angles on certain moments of the ride, in which we will talk about one of those moments of the ride later on very soon. So as you exit the station, you go forward a little bit, and then you go up the 210-foot chain lift hill. It's a pretty fast lift hill. It gets you up there pretty quickly, and then you go over your massive drop. This is a pretty great drop. If you're in the back row, it honestly feels like you're falling forever, and I think the angle of this drop, 77 degrees, definitely complements that a lot. It's a very, very great drop in the back row. I definitely encourage you to try this ride out in the back. I think the back is probably my favorite row on this ride. After that, you go through a 169-foot tall airtime hill. You get some solid floater here all around. This whole ride, again, with these hypercoasters, especially by B&M, you're mostly getting floater airtime. So it's not going to be as intense as, say, Skyrush is. And we'll talk about that ride in a minute. But after that, you go through a hammerhead turnaround, which takes you back through another airtime hill, which is about 156 feet tall. This airtime hill actually has a trim brake on it, so depending on how the train is operating, depends on if the trim operates. This one, unfortunately, usually is on, and it does kind of break the ride up a little bit. It's kind of unfortunate that it has that. You go through a speed hill right after that, and then you turn to the right in this sort of like half helix sort of element. But then this takes you into a wave turn. Yeah, this ride has a little wave turn. It's kind of cute, actually. I kind of like it. It has a little bit of some weightlessness, especially if you sit towards the left-hand side. I kind of like sitting on the right side a lot, too, so that you kind of get jolted out of your seat going down after the wave turn. It's a really neat element. And again, goes back to what I said earlier, where it's a smaller train, so it's able to do these elements with a little bit more finesse and have a little bit more risk with these layouts. So I think having the smaller train does help them out. You go through another airtime hill, and then this takes you close to the Hershey Kisses fountain, where then you make the left-hand helix around it, and this is just super iconic, where you just hear this thing roaring right around it. It dives a little bit underneath it, pops back up into the final brake run, where then it does a little dip turnaround back into the main brake. Candymonium is a very fun roller coaster. Now, by no stretch of the means is it as intense as, say, Skyrush. When Skyrush opened, it was meant to be the main hyper coaster at a park, but then ended up being way more intense than it was originally planned to be. Still, it is a fan favorite roller coaster nonetheless, so they opened up Candymonium to kind of serve as the answer to what they really wanted Skyrush to be. And let's just say I love the balance. I kind of dig having two hypercoasters at the front of the park like Skyrush and Candymonium are. And I really think Candymonium really complements the park lineup way more than I think a lot of us anticipated it to be. There is definitely a little bit of some backlash when they initially announced Candymonium to be coming to Hersheypark. Everyone was like, oh, maybe it should have been a Giga Coaster, or it should have been that instead. But you know what? I kind of like that it was a hyper. I kind of like that it was like, this is what we wanted out of Skyrush more than what we expected it to be. It's a less intense version of it. It's a great stepping stone roller coaster that the park really, really needed, especially on the throwing side. And I think this ride does so well for the park. It's a really cool ride. And of course, it's themed to chocolate. Like, that's the name Hersheypark. You have to theme it to chocolate, right? This is a really fun roller coaster, nonetheless. Now, how would this ride compare exactly to something like Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure? Now, personally, I take Nitro over Candymonium, but it's a really close call. Both rides certainly have a lot of pros and cons to it, but I think that the L-shaped layout that Nitro provides definitely makes it feel like a more classic hypercoaster than, say, Candymonium. However, I do like the uniqueness of elements that Candymonium provides, and the fact that it gets right into the action from the start really makes Candymonium stand out amongst that and Nitro. Now, you could make a whole argument between why one ride would be better than another. Both rides share basically the same qualities of each other. Smooth, fun, floater airtime, and really cool elements and ideas. Even though most of the layouts are mostly the same from each other, and you can make some very similar arguments for both of these attractions, Candymonium definitely takes the cake in terms of a theming standpoint, as well as blending into the park compared to Nitro. Now, Nitro, again, is a fantastic roller coaster. I still think it's a more thrilling coaster than Candymonium personally, but I think the fact of Candymonium not being as intense as Nitro, in my personal opinion, actually plays to Candymonium's benefit for a whole park lineup standpoint. And the fact that Candymonium needing to be that more fun roller coaster to just be a sort of supporting, fitting piece for the Hersheypark coaster lineup is such a huge help for the overall park coaster lineup, and definitely played a factor in Hersheypark having the esteemed lineup that it has today. Candymonium is truly a one-of-a-kind roller coaster and is a fantastic addition to the park, even though it opened during a very unfortunate time of the world history right now. Candymonium is truly a special roller coaster that serves as a new icon for the park, and I'm really eager to see how Chocolate Town gets expanded upon as Candymonium continues to be even sweeter every ride. Let me know what your thoughts are on Candymonium at Hersheypark. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and always thank your ride operators. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the park very soon. Goodbye.
Here we go.
Farmstead, kick back. Farmstead, kick back.
Here we go.